What up? Welcome in everybody to another episode of Profit Picks. If you are new, we do always start the show by being transparent. And yesterday, man, I haven't been that pissed off in a long time. I don't even know where to begin. But I had a losing day. My one bet was Aces minus 7.5, and we lost on the hook. I gotta say a little something about this, Rob, before I pass it over here. Aces, I'm pissed for a few reasons. Aces up 16 points, and I mean the game is looking like they're ready to run away with it. What does Becky do? She subs in Sid and Kia, and the lead just begins to evaporate immediately. Lead gets down. She puts the players she's supposed to the players the better players in. I won't even sugarcoat it. She puts the better players in. It starts to go back the Aces way, right? She continues to do this. Not just, I mean, I understand you got to get some people a break, but do you have to put Sid and Kid in at the same time? Like, that's just no offense. And every single time they're in, the lead is evaporating. So I learned, I guess, like how Teddy says, what did bettors learn? I learned that when I see the Aces sub in Sid and Kia, you go and live bet the other team. That's what I learned in that game. Other reasons why I was upset. Two more reasons. Number two, it's more than two reasons, but I'll give you the main two. At the end of the game, Kelsey Plum's at the free throw line, and she's laughing and smiling and goes and missed the free throw to cover. I don't know. That just rubbed me the wrong way right there. I did not like that. I was extremely agitated as soon as I saw that. Then not only that, the Storm go back down. The Aces steal the ball with about 30-something seconds left. And the Storm just give up. They're down by 7 points. They just give up. Elimination game, oh, well, who cares? We're just going to go home. Dribble it out. Go ahead. I've seen in a regular season teams down 10 fight tooth and nail to the last second on the clock, fouling. But for some reason in the playoff game, none of it. So I was really irritated last night. You know what I do when I'm irritated, so
I went that bartender was busy.
Right over there. But Veno, it's good to have you back on the show.
Yeah.
Hopefully your night last night went better than mine.
Well, it's interesting because I texted you. I had the other side of that game. I did, but it was only a free play. Yes, I mean I had a small play on Seattle plus the points. I just thought they would. And actually, I got the better line, Skee. I had 9.5. I took it right away. By the time I did the video yesterday, it was only 8. But a couple of things here for those folks who live in the world of sports betting games are rigged. What you just described there is why we start thinking of that stuff, because you don't even play out the last 30 seconds in a playoff game. You don't foul. It's like you must have the 7.5 over there in Seattle because you're content with that 7-point loss. That's what makes people get off on those tangents. For me, Seattle did win. It was a small play. Got home. I'm not going to get into it, but I know you even had mentioned by the end of the year that they disappointed you in some respects. You had higher expectations for that particular team. And I don't know, Magbagor means a lot to that squad. And they got to find some shooting, Skee. And let's give Prison Ball some credit, because Prison Ball went out and at least they got Marina Mabry. And we talked about her, and she had 27 in that first game. It makes a difference at this time of year if you have somebody who can shoot it. And with your passion for shooters, I think if you were running Seattle right now, you'd be out there scouring the place for a couple of 3-point shooters because they just don't have them.
Absolutely. I think that team will look a lot different next season. I have a hard time thinking that whole group is just going to stick together. And I'm not a fan of the coach either. A lot of people, I don't think, say that, but I don't think she's doing a good job. If the Storm had the Dreams coach, they would have been what we expected them to be. That's kind of how I feel about it. Shout out to the people in the chat. We got Kyle in here. He says, yo, Skee got Mark Wahlberg to come on as a guest. Oh, never mind. That's just Veno. Hope all is well, Kyle. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon. The NBA is right around the corner. Couple more comments in here. Shout out my guy Guillermo. Appreciate you tapping in. And my guy, I think this is Big Boss. Says, yeah, it is Big Boss. I don't got to think. What up, though? He says, just stopping in. See you soon, champ. Yeah, heard everybody's coming in town. You know where I am, and I can't wait to link up with you guys. And I'm curious. I know they said something about that UNLV game that maybe we're going to attend, or people were talking about
Yeah.
attending. Are we still going now that they don't have the quarterback? That's what I want to know. But let's get to some actionable info for today. You got anything on that, Vino?
That kid wanted to get paid, and they didn't pay him.
I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know everything about what happened, but from what I was reading was he was promised 100,000 and they only paid him 3,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. They promised him all that NIL money, and he didn't receive it. And he found out when he went to the coach's office that he really wasn't going to get it. And so you have the option in his shoes, as long as you don't play a fourth game. After your fourth game, you can't redshirt anymore. So he's like, well, you know what? I've only played 3. I don't get my money. I don't play for you. And I think he entered the transfer portal or is about to. So somebody else is going to get him as a quarterback. He had played really well to date. Not throwing the football necessarily, but his the running aspect, the dual threat part of his game was really good. So it'll be interesting to see where Barry Odom goes from here, because UNLV was off to a nice start, Skee, and it's kind of a shame that this NIL stuff is so out of control with no real regulations that stuff like this can happen mid-season.
Yeah. I can see. I mean, I can see this game now. It's probably already happening. No quarterback. Everybody's gonna run to the window and bet Fresno. Whatever. You know how I say. I've seen this before. Rob.
I've seen this one before.
And we passed a few tickets like that.
It works in UFC. I've seen this one before.
I had to text you last time, like, oh, I'm getting
you guys
that.
can
that
have
feeling.
those tickets. We'll take this ticket. You can have those.
Kyle says he's pretty sure the backup is an athlete. Still down to bet UNLV most likely, and so is B Daddy. So we shall see. Oh, some people in the chat like in UNLV. So we'll see by the time it gets there. I'll be keeping an eye out for sure. But let's get to today's games. We have 2 in the W. And first up, 6-13, 6-14, Fever and Sun opened up Fever -7.5. They're now 6.5 point favorites. Total has dropped from 163.5. I see a few 162.5. So you still can line shop. They're still 163.5. So depending on what you like on the total, make sure you get the best of the number. And for the injury report, let me just refresh. Ty Harris, who's a big deal for this Connecticut Sun team, she's still questionable. And if she's not playing, I think you'll see Mabry starting, but I really like her. I think she's a big part of this team. Tiffany Mitchell out as well. Nobody on the injury report for the Fever. So, Vino, I was on the Sun in game 1. My thought process was, you have a team who is consistently in the playoffs, a lot of experienced veterans, and, they're a prideful team, especially when they play this Fever team. I'll just say that. So I knew that they would come and throw that first punch in the first game. I thought they would run away. They did. Now Fever get a little bit of playoff experience. Caitlin, Kelsey Mitchell, they have, they see what it's like, et cetera, et cetera. Can they now bounce back? I know that Connecticut has been pretty, just off the top of my head, I think they've been pretty bad in the second games of series. 6.5, they're getting a little bit more than last game. Do you think it's enough for the Fever to hang?
Well, to take the Fever, you have to buck the trend between these two that's happened this season. That was the 3rd game these two have played in Mohegan Sun. Connecticut's won by 21, 17, and 24. It's hard to go against that. But if you choose to, that's one of the things you're up against here. The point about Ty Harris, well taken. It shortens up Connecticut's bench if she can't go. She didn't play much in game 1, right? She went out early in that contest, I believe. And like we were talking off air here, Marina Mabry certainly stepped in and did what they brought her over to do. I think you and I had this game Friday when we talked, Skee. We talked about it a little bit. We were in agreement. I also had this Sun. I played him early. I think we were both in agreement there too. First quarter was a nice play with Connecticut. It did work out. They were cheap price, win by 3. The way they pulled away in that game one, and the way Indiana started to show some frustration, maybe inexperienced frustration, but when that game got out of hand, you saw Caitlin's expressions change real quickly, kind of to the PO'd type of expression. I do think they're good enough to answer back. The question is, do they just have the personnel to match up with this particular team? And they just don't do well against this squad for whatever reason in this arena. If they can get it back home, it's a different story because they played twice in Indiana, and Indiana actually beat them outright once and played them right to the wire, I think an overtime game in the other one. So the venue's been rough on Indiana. I really want to take a shot with them, and I'd look to take a shot with their team total over because I thought that the way their offense fell off a cliff late in that game and they still got the 69, perhaps if they're a little more consistent tonight, they could get over with the team total, but I'm not there yet. And I'm not there with the Sun yet either, not at least as strongly as I was in game one. So for me, to this point, it's been a pass. I could see arguments both ways. If the proverbial gun-to-head situation was in effect here, I think I would try Indiana team total over. I just think that if nothing else, they'll continue to play at pace. For whatever reason, Connecticut plays at pace with them. Look at the scores of these games. These games are all high-scoring games. Connecticut doesn't fear running with these guys or with this team. So I would say probably Indiana team total over, but I haven't played anything yet.
Team total for the Fever post All-Star, they are 10-5 to the over, and their opponent's team total also 10-5 to the over. So they score, they don't play any defense. And I mean, we've seen that because I know they got a little bit better offensively when you add Marina Mabry, but this Sun team, you know how I viewed their offense before that for the most of the season. It was prison ball, and they've still put up 88 plus 4 out of the 5 times these teams have faced each other. So it's very hard for me to look towards an under. I do think that the Fever can play a little bit better, but I think Thomas is a problem for them. I'll say this. This is what the Fever have going for them. The longer they can prolong this series, the more it favors them. Because, I mean, especially if Ty Harris is out for this game, I mean, it's not a whole lot of bodies on that Connecticut team that you trust to put out there and give you quality minutes. So it just really cuts their depth. And Fever, I think, there's probably 8, 9 players that they at least trust to go out there and they got the chemistry to do some things that are good. That's what makes me nervous in this game. I guess if I have to play it, I really want to try to get there with the Sun. But what I just said is what worries me. So maybe Sun first quarter. Any thoughts on that, Veno?
Well, I would ask this just from, the way we handicap playoff basketball, and with Connecticut having beaten Indiana once again in such easy fashion, do they come out a little bit? I mean, is the focus there for them, or do they just as a team think, we'll handle these guys again? You and I talked last Friday, and we talked about how Carrington will absolutely hound Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark was 4 of 17 and 2 for 13 from 3.
It's beef.
Yeah. I mean, you have to come out that way every single game, though, because if you don't play that hard against Indiana, they will score points. And I don't know Connecticut's mindset in that locker room well enough. I'm going to assume that they're going to come out and play just as hard as they did because they don't want to go back to Indiana. That's kind of my fallback reasoning for saying Connecticut will play here because they've seen what happens in Indiana and it hasn't been as good as it's been here. So I think Connecticut probably does play hard again, come out and, like I say, try and really pressure that backcourt, Clark mainly. But Kelsey Mitchell was no better in that game. She had her difficulties too, the two of them. And they're really, Aaliyah Boston's really good, but those two are what make that engine go. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, maybe the over is what I like the most. Munaf says Kyle is wilding in the chat right now. I don't think he's wilding. I think he's saying some things that are that I would agree with. Let me see about this one. He says, I don't know how Carrington isn't a bigger WNBA star. I'll say this. She just won most improved player. So she's fairly new in the league. She was not as good offensively as, you've seen this season. She's always been good on defense, but she's gotten a lot better. is what I'll say. Maybe eventually she will be. Couple other comments. Bake says thoughts on Fever team total under 78.5. Haven't gone over that number against the Sun.
He's right.
Sun do have a good defense,
but I think Skee, I think that number that he's referring to there only, and of course the game is played in Connecticut today, but it only takes into consideration the games played in Connecticut because the two in Indiana, they did score over 78.5. But in Connecticut, in this arena, they have not.
That one's tough. I don't want to talk you either way, Bake, but I mean, if they haven't been doing it, I'm not mad if you want to take that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle says Carrington is good as hell, attractive, seems to have the right personality. Surprised that she wasn't a superstar. I'm just disappointed that she plays for the opposite team. That's all. That's what I'm disappointed about. Or she plays for the same team. I mean, my bad. Plays for the same team as you and me, Kyle. I agree. I agree with all of these comments. I'm a fan. All right. Let's move over to the next game. That is Mercury and Lynx. Opened up Lynx minus 8.5. They're now a 9-point favorite. And total hasn't really moved. 160.5 looked like the opener. And still sitting right there. Injury report. Just Osborne game time decision for the Mercury. Almost called them the Phoenix Suns. And the Lynx don't have anybody on there. The Lynx in that last game, I mean, it looked like the game was over early. What were they up 20-something? And then sure enough, the Mercury come flying all the way back. I know they took the lead by 1 at one point, kind of late in that fourth quarter, I think within the last 5 minutes, but just couldn't get the job done, couldn't get the win. It's a lot of talented players on this roster. It's a lot of players who I consider to be dogs, and they're prideful. They're not gonna go out just and lay it down, So I'll say this: I view this Mercury team as a team who can get buckets with the best of them, but they're also a team who's not going to get a whole lot of stops. And for the Lynx, they are a much better defensive team, but like I said, the Mercury have the talent to still score on them, as shown in that last game. Last game ended, I think, 197. So combination of that and the Lynx being able to score, I think this game isn't over. And if I'm playing aside, Phoenix, they've been pretty poor post All-Star, probably even further than post All-Star as a road dog. I don't think they've really beaten any of the top teams, any good teams on the road, especially. It's hard for me to trust them there. But in this situation, I just can't take the Lynx. I can't take a -9 to win by double digits. Diana Taurasi and what could be her last game, she could be a play on. I think she'll be on fire from 3-point range. And I think, everybody else brings it too. So I lean Mercury plus the points. And I think there are a lot of points scored in this game. How are you feeling on this one, Veno?
All right. So you and I usually don't play point counterpoint, but I'll take the other side of this one. I did a single game video for Wagertalk this morning, free play analysis. And the free play for today, for those who go over and check, was on Minnesota. And I did it for a couple of reasons, Skee. A is that as good as Phoenix can be offensively, what they did in game 1, I doubt very seriously that can be duplicated against this defense. Here's what they did. They shot 50% from the field. By WNBA standards, 50% from the field is like 65 in the NBA. 51.9% from 3. 14 makes from 3-point range in that game. Natasha Cloud had 33. And I understand she can have an outburst every now and again, but Natasha Cloud is not a 33 points per game scorer. Those things are unlikely to happen again against the Lynx here. And despite all of that happening, they still lost by 7. And you're being asked to lay 9 here. I don't know that could happen. Phoenix, if I just get into the weeds of the statistical stuff, they depend on threes a lot, but they were only 7th in percentage from 3-point range in the league this year. And Minnesota is the number 1 3-point shooting defense in the league. So again, some of that stuff that happened in game 1 has to change here. When you look at Minnesota, they were the number 1 3-point shooting offense. Phoenix, the number 7 3-point shooting defense. And Minnesota is so consistent when it comes to shooting threes. It doesn't look, outrageous on paper when you shoot 41% from three like they did in game one. But they hover around that 36 to 45 almost every game. You can depend on them. Phoenix can go cold from three. There's no question about it. Couple other things. Minnesota's so good at forcing turnovers. They score a lot of points off turnovers. Phoenix was the second worst team in the league this year at allowing points off of turnovers. So that's an edge for Minnesota. And then I just get to the regular season series. The regular season series went 3-1 Minnesota. They won by 13, 13, and 24. The only game they lost to Phoenix this year, Rebecca Allen was part of. And who the heck did we just talk about whose absence is missed? I can't remember exactly, but Rebecca Allen, the same effect on this Phoenix team to me. Copper came back last week, didn't play as well as she can, so maybe some of those Natasha Cloud points slide over to Kalea Copper tonight. I get it all. But I think the more consistent, the more reliable team, the team that's not going to go into a scoring drought in this game would be Minnesota. So for me, I would like the Lynx. I cannot disagree with the over here because they've scored so heavily against Phoenix all year long. And chances are Phoenix's defense doesn't come to play here either. They try to outscore you. So I think that some of that stuff, there's a regression to the mean for Phoenix offensively, and we get a Minnesota cover here.
All right, Veno thinks they get the job done. I hope they win because I did make a bet for Minnesota to win this series 2-0. So I just go ahead and scrape out a win. I don't care how much you win by, but Veno thinks they can get the job done by margin. Good stuff. Some things coming in the chat. I think Sean, he said he likes McBride over 5.5 rebounds plus assists. Hit 6 of the last 6 games versus Phoenix. I'll say one thing I don't like, or maybe it was just I couldn't for the life of me figure out. Like these coaches are doing bonehead things, and it's not making sense to me. Last game, Minnesota versus Mercury. Why is Natisha Heidemann in the game down the stretch? Why is McBride on the bench? Natisha, they playing 4-on-5 with Heidemann out there. She can't guard nobody. She's not giving you anything on offense. Like, I was stressing my Minnesota to win 2-0 bet just looking at her out there. So I don't know what they're doing. If they leave her out there again and put McBride on the bench, Phoenix can absolutely cover this game.
Yeah.
And that's just like bonehead stuff. And Minnesota has a good coach. Coach Reeve is excellent. So I'm unsure why that happened. But
yeah, she was the Olympic coach.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for her. So I'm not going to say too much about her, but that decision was not a good one. And it almost cost them that game. So hopefully she learned from that if you guys are on Minnesota tonight. All right. That's
Skee, real quick, a couple of points that you made here that it makes me think. You talked about the bonehead decisions made by Becky Hammon, right?
Yeah.
Another, maybe the most respected head coach in WNBA. And then the bonehead decision made by Cheryl Reeve, personnel-wise, who's on the floor at what times. It just didn't seem right. And it makes no sense to try and get people minutes when, you don't have to play. You're not playing back-to-backs or anything. You can't let your 5 run in a playoff game. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. The more you said that, the more I started thinking, even with time period in between, you would think Kayla McBride is a must on the floor. You cannot be without her if you're Minnesota. So
I couldn't believe it.
Interesting.
I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there. I told you what I do when I'm stressing. I head over to. I'm saying I need 2 more immediately, please. But I just couldn't believe I was seeing that. Like, it seems like so common sense that you should have McBride out there. Anyway, I think we did a pretty good job breaking these games down. Solo says, I agree. I kind of think Kelsey knew the spread and missed on purpose. Shaking my head. Obviously can't prove, but the eye test tells. Hey, I think I saw a lot of people betting Kelsey to have 30+ points too. She was on 29. The spread was in danger by 1 point. The total was in danger by a point or 2. And you guys saw what happened. She's up there smiling and laughing and missed a free throw. I want to say she's like a 90% free throw shooter too. I really want to check, but yeah, I was upset. I'll say that. So we'll move it on over. Let me ask you a question here, Veno. I didn't plan to do this, but as we talk, if you have like 5 to 10 minutes more, I do have a question I want to ask, or a couple questions. So I said I was gonna make some adjustments to what I'm doing in the NFL. Let me start by saying this actually. I put in a lot of work in the off season for NFL, and I made about 5 futures bets. I think I should have made more because the futures bets I made are looking pretty good right now. Steelers over their total, Cowboys under, Chiefs I think to win the division, and there's one that doesn't look good, the Bills under. But for the most part, I think I did good work. I started the season. I always say I start the season pretty good. Week 1 was good. Week 2 was kind of back and forth. Week 3, a disaster. So I can't keep doing the same things that I'm doing. I got to change it up. And my thing was I'm gonna take my time to bet these games and not rush out and just have so many, just going off my first opinion, just taking my time and then betting it when I feel closer to game time when I feel like I want to play them. But there's a few games that catch my attention here, Vino,
Yeah.
and just curious your thoughts on them. First, I'll go down the list and just see which one I'll pop to first. First was, or maybe not first, but this one does stand out to me. Kansas City and the Chargers. Either the look ahead line or the opener was Kansas City -3. They're now in, I mean, I see 8, I see 8.5, I see 9 point favorite. So a huge jump. And I do understand, Chargers are missing a lot of players. I think they're missing Slater, they're missing Joe Alt. I think they're going to be missing Bosa, and Derwin got suspended for a game. Those are impact players. Is I mean, do you agree with this 5 point line move or 6 point line move? Is kind of my question. And do you think the rest of the players just believe in Harbaugh enough to maybe and have enough talent there still to keep this one close?
Well, and in that list of injuries, you didn't even include Justin Herbert, right? Which is probably why the line moves more than anything else. But LA's had such a problem with offensive line injuries, with defensive line injuries, and overall for the last half dozen years, it seems like they're the most banged up team in the NBA. In the NFL. If this wasn't a divisional game, Skee, I might think that Harbaugh and their belief in him could get them through. It almost got them through against Pittsburgh last week, but on the road they couldn't do it. But this is a divisional game, and Kansas City is going to take this dead serious because it's the king of all tiebreakers and everything else. So when you have a team inside your division that's as decimated as the Chargers are going to enter this game with, I don't know if they have enough pieces. Taylor Heineke, is that really who you want to roll with here? It's tough. And Jim Harbaugh, and here's one more thing to say to that is that LA has become his type of team, right? He wants to run the ball and play defense. And if you get behind with a team that can't really throw, you've got all sorts of trouble against Kansas City because they'll just start piling on. So for Los Angeles, and it's all guesswork again, but if you're going to bet Los Angeles, you have to hope they're going to be ahead and that they can just shorten the game for you. And if Kansas City gets ahead, say like 10 or 14, you're probably in deep trouble. So I would probably lean Chiefs in that game.
All right, fair enough. To answer my guy, Kyle says, "Skee, do you put out any NBA preseason stuff? Would like to run through some possible win total bets. Preseason, I haven't really bet preseason in like 4 years. I'm not too thrilled about preseason, but NBA season previews, I'm gonna do a video on each team. I think is how I was gonna do it. Either each team or each division, probably each team. And I'm gonna start. I might even start tomorrow since there's not any games. I'm gonna be betting. Or actually no, there's NFL tomorrow. But maybe I'll start tomorrow. Maybe I'll start next week. And yeah, if you want to do NBA season previews, just hit me up. I'm always down to do that. And Munaf, if you guys are looking for some too, he says his division previews start on the NBA gambling podcast tomorrow. So check my guy Munaf out. One more game or another game that stands out to me here, Vino. I'm looking at all the injured games. San Fran and New England. I mean, who's not injured for San Fran right now? Right? Debo, CMC, Purdy. Purdy's a big one. I would want Purdy in if I want the Niners. Absolutely. Um, I saw a defensive tackle out. Like a lot of people were out for this 49ers team. They're off of what, 2 losses outright. I, for some reason, have a feeling like they still can do whatever they want with this New England team. Like I think the defensive line can get after them. I think that the run game will still be there against New England. I think that New England. I mean, we see the Bengals are now 0-3, even though they could have won a couple of those games. I think the Patriots just kind of caught them sleepwalking into the season. I forget what happened in the Patriots' second game, but my point is the Patriots are not as good as they look to start the season. I could only look towards San Fran here to win by double digits. Am I wrong for that?
George Kittle, another guy
Kittle.
injured, right? Skee, I mean, offensively. So the way I look at it is this: I would prefer over everything under in this game. Gerard Mayo, the new head coach for New England, made it plain and simple for us all heading into this season. Listen, we're going to run the football. We're going to shave possessions off games, and we're going to try and play defense. And that's the kind of, it's kind of like what Jim Harbaugh has brought to the LA Chargers. So when you stick a quarterback, if Purdy can't go, and again, when you said you don't want to rush into it, you'll wait and see. So you can wait on this injury a couple of more days and see what happens. But if Purdy can't go and Brandon Allen ends up being the quarterback, or if Josh Dobbs ends up being the quarterback, you could pretty much assume San Francisco is going to go into that offensive shell and rely on their defense as well. And to me, you get a clock grinding game. Neither coach, they both want to play field position. They think that San Francisco's defense is still really good and still in really good shape. They're not the part of the team that's banged up. So to me, it was 40.5 early. I think they bet it down to 39.5 now. I still think it's probably an under. I think you just get one of those boring, slow games it's non-conference as well, which doesn't have full meaning. It's like the third most important division, non-division, and then non-conference. But I think it's probably low scoring here. I think both sides are going to play the same style of football, and we end up with San Francisco's happy to win this game. What did the Jets win by, Skee, against New England last Thursday? Like 24-3, 27-point total. I could see this game being in that 30-point range as well. 39.5 is probably too high.
My bad, I was muted. I can see the under hit in there, but yeah, New England definitely struggles to score. We shall see on that. I have another question, I guess now. I mean, this one's standing out to me right now. Seattle and Detroit. Detroit opened 4.5-point favorites down to 3.5. Total 48.5 down to 46.5. I know that Detroit has a lot of injuries too. But I mean, I start with the Seattle team. I feel like they're a little bit overrated right now. Yes, they've won their 3 games, but they played the Broncos, they played the Patriots, they had to go to overtime to beat them, and then they beat a Dolphins team with no quarterback and just looking terrible out there. So I don't want to put too much stock into what we've seen from the Seahawks. The Lions, where are they now? 2-1. I think that everybody, me included, expected Detroit to be really good this year. I think that they still have enough healthy players to be able to push this Seattle team around. Like the offensive line for Detroit is still really good. I think they'll be able to run all over them. And it's just a matter of if that secondary can, I guess, hold up against, those weapons that Seattle has. But I want to get there with Detroit. That's kind of how I'm feeling. Can you talk me off?
Probably not. I mean, we got there with Detroit last week, right? And they survived that game. But boy, money poured in on the other side of that game. Nobody really wanted any of Detroit after the first 2 weeks, and they came through defensively. The offense is off to a real slow start here, Skee. But to your point of you think they can run on Seattle? Seattle's got some really big, and it's like I call this cluster injury, but cluster injuries inside that front seven, and against that offensive line of Detroit makes it even more to your liking that they would be able to run on Seattle. To that end, Seattle's passing game against the Detroit secondary, Aiden Hutchinson better get busy and be in Geno's back pocket because otherwise they're going to move the football. Yeah. So I could see Detroit. I could see over in that game. I'm glad Seattle's off to that start because that was one of my futures. Seattle Seahawks over
Nice.
8.5 wins. Let's hope they can get me 6 more and finish 9-8. But yeah, I could totally see Detroit here. It's interesting because they're 2-1 without really playing their best football yet.
Right.
And when they do kick it into gear one of these weeks, I mean, it's tough for us to tell which week they're going to get to that 30 plus point range, but it's going to happen. And it could happen here just because of the injuries across the front seven to Seattle.
All right. I like what I'm hearing on that game. I'm kind of a little closer to pushing that button on that one. I said I didn't really have too much to talk about. Now I got a million things to talk about here. um, I think this week what it was is after last week, I didn't want to jump right out. I just took my time even looking at all of these games. But I'm looking at them now, and Minnesota, they've looked damn good. They're what 3-0 as well.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold getting away from the Panthers actually looks like a good quarterback. Getting away from what he played for the Jets too, right?
Yeah.
The coaching over there in Minnesota seems really good. I like what they're doing on defense too, but they're 3-0. I'm unsure if I could say they've overperformed or they were undervalued coming into the season, but they open as a 2.5 point favorite, and we see a flip of favorites to -2.5 versus a Green Bay team who I'm pretty sure Jordan Love will be back, and this is a big, big division game for them. It's kind of calling my name that this flipped to Green Bay as a favorite. I just kind of feel like they're favored for a reason. So I guess my question to you is Minnesota the real deal or are they overvalued? Do you think Green Bay can get away with the win in this game?
I think yes to a lot of that. And not only do I think Minnesota is the real deal. And it's funny, Ski, when a lot of these preseason projections, prognostications, whatever are made, um, we base them on offense, defense, not a lot of special teams, and really not a lot factored into assistant coaching. But what Brian Flores has brought to the Minnesota defense is really the difference maker
Yeah.
in their team right now. O'Connell, we knew, was a really good offensive mind running the show on offense. Darnold, I think, was a question mark for a lot of people, but he's shown that in this kind of pass happy system, he's just fine. They protect him. He's accurate. But Green Bay's the real deal, too, because they went through 2 games just now without Jordan Love and won those games. And I think somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, because I was going through numbers yesterday. I think Green Bay's the number 1 rushing team in the NFL right now, amazingly enough.
Aaron Jones, oh no, my bad.
Yeah, they're going crazy running the football because they knew they didn't have Jordan Love. Now Jordan Love is back. It'll be interesting to see. That's the reason for the flip. Do you believe Jordan Love is worth 5 points from +2.5 to -2.5? He probably is. How effective will he be in the first game back? You can't be positive, but you would assume they held him back. There was a chance he could play last week and they didn't play him. So I think they were being cautious in anticipation of this game because this, like we talked about, KC and the Chargers is the one that matters. It's divisional. And Green Bay knows right now, hey, Minnesota's a real threat. We got to win this game. So I would trust Green Bay at home, less than a field goal. And that's not a fade of Minnesota. That's just trusting what I've seen out of Green Bay overall and the fact that they could overcome that quarterback injury the last 2 weeks. So I would think Green Bay under a field. You don't want to let it get to 3. And there's a couple of spots that are already touching 3 as I look at the odds screen now. But if you can get that 2.5, I think Green Bay at home is probably a good play.
All right, we're agreeing on that. Gundam Atticus says, didn't Love slice and dice Flores defense last year? I don't remember. For some reason, Munaf wants to talk about the Ravens in here. Chris says teams that open as a dog and close as a favorite are 69 and 97 against the spread going back to 2019. That would say to play on the Green Bay Packers and fade. Wait. Open as a dog and close
The
as a
other way
favorite.
around.
Yeah, fade Green Bay. That's what this one would say. Interesting. And they did mention Aaron Jones' revenge game. So a lot of interesting things to look at in this one. I guess that's pretty much it. Last thing I'll say is Washington and Arizona seems pretty easy to go through the window and bet the over with, the Commanders' defense. We've seen Daniels look good at the quarterback for Washington now, and Arizona's secondary is young. They still need time, and we've seen that Arizona can put up points. I have a feeling that's not an over you can talk me off of, Veno.
No, because they still allow us to win on 51. Skee, that totals 50.5. 51 is such a common number, so many common scores to land on a 51. So if you're going to get it now. Can't disagree. Arizona's on back-to-back home games here, and they were kind of stifled offensively by Detroit last week. So you figure there's a breakout happening here. Washington on short work week with, like you say, a secondary that's absolutely miserable. And Kyler Murray in that game against Los Angeles showed that you give him a defense that's capable of being beat and he'll beat it. So I think that Marvin Harrison Jr., hello, Arizona, and Jaden Daniels, just to wrap it up, looks sensational at quarterback for Washington. And they're bringing that team is so good offensively because they can run it and they can throw off of the run. How many guys, Terry McLaurin and company, were open in that game against Cincy? So, Washington's not the same Arizona's not the same decimated middle of the defensive line. Remember, Cincy was missing both of their run-stuffing defensive tackles, so it was easier for Washington to run. Arizona's not quite that bad. They'll be better there, but I still think Washington more than capable. It's interesting with Washington too, Skee, because every time I talk, I have another thought here. They kicked 7 field goals the week before against the Giants. It's like every single drive results in points.
Yeah.
And when they result in touchdowns, you see what happens. That's what happened Monday night. You get those big scores. So I think you're probably on the right track there.
And just what you said, I just keep thinking about something else. I keep saying last thing and then think about something else. But are we a believer in Andy Dalton? Andy Dalton revenge game versus the Bengals? Are the Bengals done? Are they going to quit? Any thoughts on that?
Well, he brought stability to that huddle on Sunday. I mean, I don't know if Bryce Young kind of gets nervous back there with the lack of protection, but Andy Dalton's been through the wars and he looked really good against the Raiders. The Raiders aren't the best example to use because they're not the best team, but he still carved them up. So they're better off with him. Cincinnati's got some absolute thinking to do because they couldn't pressure. They couldn't do anything on defense. Washington never punted, right? Not that Cincinnati did, but Washington never punted either. And betting it down to 4 points, though, and what could be a high. Look at where that total moved to, Skee. 42.5 all the way to 48. Nobody believes in either defense in that game. I could probably agree with that, but they have taken so many key numbers out of the equation now that it's almost too late to bet that. I'll take a look at it, but I could probably make a case to side with Carolina here, or you could make the case to side with Cincinnati too. We'll see if their defensive tackles come back for this game. It'll make a huge difference.
I think that was the first time we had a quarterback throw for, what was it, 300? Or maybe it's not the first, but he threw for 300 plus and like a few touchdowns. Quarterback play hasn't been that good this season. So, for a couple people, Josh Allen's been good, Darnold's been good, but it was nice to see that, I guess, if you like Carolina. And to that Bryce Young point, I'll say this. Go ahead and, it happens to the best of us, man. Get your mind together. She's not yours. It was only your turn, man. Get over it, Bryce Young. You got a lot to look forward to, brother. You'll be all right, Bryce Young. All right, Veno. Let's move it on over to best bets. And I'll ask you, I guess, before we give a best bet, is there anything that you would like to promote? And maybe we'll play you like a little bit more than the rest that we talked about.
We're learning so much on this show today, Skee, from the fact that you won't be getting any QR codes from Dejanay Carrington to get over at Bryce Young. It's crazy.
I forgot
what we've
about
learned
that QR code. I forgot about the QR code.
It's amazing what we can learn on this show. Let me start with over at Wagertalk.com. That's where you'll find all my work. Of course, Skee always tells you that the link is in the description, so you can find me over there. Play on Thursday Night Football up and available. You can get your WNBA action over there as well. And college football is going to be sporadically posted on my site from probably this afternoon right through Saturday morning. So you can always get your college football over there as well. As far as what we talked about on the show here today, I will just say that the only thing that I even slightly bet, and again, it was a free play today, so it's a small bet on my part, but it was Minnesota minus the 9. So I'm going to roll with the Lynx for purposes of best bet on this show. I think that there's still an opportunity for me to get to some form of total in that Connecticut-Indiana game, whether it be full game total or Indiana team total over, but I haven't yet. So let's roll with Minnesota Lynx tonight, minus 9 is best bet for the show.
Good stuff from Veno. And for my promo, I'll just say, I mean, I have to say like this: promo, best bet altogether. I cannot give you guys the best bet on the show because I've only made one bet today, and I gave you the one yesterday, even though it didn't win. But it would be unfair to give this one out too. It's a 5% play. I had it up since yesterday. People have already bought it, so if you cap the capper, you probably know what I like already. But if you need some confirmation, you can check it out over at wagertalk.com, and the link to my page is in the description to this video. I don't like to give out bets that I haven't made, so I can only have that one. But what I will say is, if I make any more today, I will tweet them out. And if I don't do that, I'll do my best to give 2 best bets tomorrow or on Friday's show. So, and lastly, since you brought it up, I forgot all about that, Rob. What was that? We were at Circa.
Yeah.
I think the tequila pineapples give you that confidence. I say, I'm about to go get her number right here. Watch me get her number. And she pulled out a QR code or something for me to get it.
She made her boyfriend go get her a drink or something, and you slipped that QR code in.
Yeah, she was talking to. Yeah. Now it's coming back,
I got to get back out there.
Yeah, I look forward to it. So when you're here, hit me up. We'll have a good time like we always do. Appreciate you taking the time to come by and break these games down with me. Chat, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. A lot of great people and great cappers. And you guys are the reason why I come on and do the show every day, because I just enjoy doing it. So always want to let you know you appreciate it. Until tomorrow, best of luck on all your action. And I'll see you then. Peace.